Good afternoon. Welcome to Second Lap. It's Rob Matson. My guest today, I'm joined by Joe Sullivan. We are having conversations about best practices, lessons learned, and walking around the circumference of the earth. I'm, God, I think it's less than 3 weeks now away. July 24th is my official 10-year tracking, and I'm at 35, 455 approximately. And the only reason I guess I really get excited about that, Joe, as I'm introducing you, is, and I get goosebumps as I talk about it. If you do the math and divide it out, I've averaged 297 ish miles per month for 120 months straight.
Wow, that's incredible.
Isn't that insane? It's like,
I, I
no
can't even
wonder my
imagine.
right, yeah, my right hip hurts, you know?
Well, brother, at my age, everything hurts, so get used to it. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. I appreciate you doing this. So I
yeah.
kind of kicked it off. Um, you have accomplished, and I'm pausing here on purpose. I've always been told I've got the best pregnant pauses here. You have accomplished the American dream. You have worked for the man, saved, put yourself in a position, and have, I think you shared with me almost a year ago, maybe now. You can tell me the date, but that you were going to withdraw from high tech sales and go be a retiree. So you're living the
Well,
American dream. How has that been?
actually, Rob, it was July of last year, so it's coming. It's actually been a year now, right? And
Fantastic.
yeah, many people warned me that it was not the right thing to do, that you'd get bored and all sorts of things would happen. But I can tell you this: I've never been happier than I had the last year, and plus two, I've never been busier than I have been in the last year, and it's been great. And I gave myself a year to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I just extended it another year because I'm kind of enjoying what I'm doing right now.
And that's awesome that you renegotiated with yourself and gave yourself that opportunity. That's great. So peel back the onion. You said what I heard. I'm more busy now than I was before. Is that working in the garden? Is that the sunset and sunrises I see you enjoying in Florida? What is it accompanying the more busy?
It's basically, like you mentioned, all the above, really. Just, you know, it's amazing when you have the time how you can fill that time, right? And you mentioned, is it, I think you said, is it gardening? Actually, that's one of the things that I have picked up over the last year. I've always done my yard with landscape, but never got into planting new things and so forth. And I find myself every morning, I'm out there drinking my coffee, looking at my plants, seeing what needs to be trimmed, what needs to be replanted. And I know that sounds kind of crazy for somebody my age, but it kind of it brings me peace. And I think after all said and done, that's kind of what I've been seeking the most for the longest time. Is just peace.
And is it? I mean, I look at Hollywood as sort of programming us for our lives. Are we seeing like Mr. Miyagi, like you know bonsai? Like I'm just sort of appreciating being alive and being able to be here. I mean, being present. What do you attribute it to?
What the
Your
peace that I've
peace.
yeah the
Yeah, the
peace.
peace.
Well, I think first and foremost is from an early age on, there's a lot of things that you worry about in life. Like, life brings a lot of things to the table that you have to constantly worry about. And,
Yep.
and, and worry, while it's negative, it just really wears people down. And I found that it was been wearing me down for gosh knows however how long, right?
Yep.
So I just always had this goal of I'd like to get to a point where I could achieve peace. And I don't mean that there's no more stressors in my life. We will always have stressors
Right.
until they close the box and put dirt on us, right? But there is a difference between, I think, stressors that you can control and stressors that you can't. And I think as I've moved into this new phase of my life, I've really taken on more of the stressors that I control versus when I was working, as we all know in high tech sales, it's a tremendous amount of stress of which you don't have any control.
Yep. Yes, for sure. And I think there's a lot of artificial. I will use both. The example I would say is you kicked it off, and I just read a book that I'm forgetting the title of that talks about chosen and unchosen stress. Like you
Yeah.
have things that you can control. It's a great theme to talk about, and things that you can't control. And for me, things like QBRs or quarterly business reviews and meeting, for a review on a customer. I took that perspective that I used to have, which was, hey, they're testing me. They're trying to see how they can find where I've got faults or where maybe I'm, you know, deprived of some sort of knowledge or skill here. And at the end of the day, I've now take this perspective of we get together so that I don't have any blind spots and that we can all talk as a group and we can, sort of do better. And so tried to look at it from that perspective, and just stress about things that I have control over. Like if it's not something I can't control, then let it go. And it's really hard to do. And it's great that it sounds like you've achieved that. Is there,
Well, I wouldn't say I've achieved it now, right? I mean, life is a constant evolving process, right? So, I'd say for about the first 4 to 5 months of me stopping work was actually realizing that I had stopped work, if that kind of makes sense, and
okay,
I found myself getting up every morning, getting down to my office, sitting at my computer, doing things that I normally do around my investments and so forth like that, but I still
okay,
stay somewhat routine oriented, right? So it took me a while to really adjust to the fact that, hey, when I get up, I control my own schedule for the rest of the day.
okay. Do you have like a morning ritual? Do you have, as you said, coffee in the yard and you're looking at what
Yeah.
you could do from that? What does it look like?
Yeah. Well, I've always been a routine oriented person. So much so it drives my wife insane. Even to this day, I still have a routine. But I have found that routines are very important as it relates to success. Right? You find
Yep.
something that works and you repeat it, and
Yep.
it continues to amplify. Right? My morning routine is I still get up early. I've always been an early riser, and my what I call my me time. So my wife's asleep and I'm awake.
Yep.
Uh, I can do a lot of things. I read. I do research on investments I'm looking at, or I'll actually sit down and do some investment analysis of things I might need to restructure and things. So I just, I fill that time with stuff that's going to kind of help me still, I still have goals, right? I mean, you
Yep.
never stop having goals. So I'm still, working for those goals that I have, albeit they're my goals now. They're not goals for some other company or some sales director or CI, CRO or whatever like that.
Right.
If that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
We talked about prior to getting on here the three-legged stool. We talked about that a lot because that was your, I'm going to call it your trademark
Oh,
statement and whiteboard as we worked
oh
together
man.
years ago. You said we would talk to about how you relate it to life. So
Yeah.
do you want to
Yeah.
give sort of the base story of what
Well,
the three-legged stool is about?
yeah, I think I think in order to dive deeper into the three-legged stool, I think it's important to explain how this came about, right? And
Yes.
yeah, this thing's been around since I think it originated in 2012 in a sales kickoff meeting. I had to give an impromptu presentation, and during that, I mentioned a three-legged stool, which the room, I think I might have been the oldest or close to the oldest in the room, and nobody had ever heard of a three-legged stool. And coming from my era, we had a lot of three-legged stools, nightstands that had three legs and a table on top, right? It
Well, it's the most stable. It's the most stable number of legs. Like if you have more than three, the table becomes unbalanced. So it's the most balanced example.
but
That's what
it's
I remember as an older human too.
but it's also the most fragile because if you happen to knock one of the legs off, guess what happens, right?
Right over.
And that's kind of the metaphor that I like to use, and I was using at that time in the presentation. Unfortunately, that carried with me from that point forward because nobody really knew at that point what a three-legged stool. However, I've used that in a lot of different applications, since then. And I think it is a great metaphor, especially as I have looked back in the past and how I've tried to structure things that I've tried to achieve from happiness, right?
Okay.
And you say happiness, and what does that mean? And I think, of course, it's like anything; it means different things to different people.
Yep.
And I do think that people say, well, happiness is a state of mind. Well, I disagree, because if it was a state of mind, anybody could say, I want to be happy, and you'd be happy, right? So there's things you have to have, what I would call pillars to help you, core pillars to help you achieve your quality of life, which hopefully that would
Right.
be happiness, right? And as it relates to what I think is a happy life, I've always had three core pillars, or what I like to say, three legs of the three-legged stool, and that is, relationships, purpose, and health, right? And
Okay.
first of all, from a relationship standpoint, I think in order to have a happy life, you got to have someone to love, right?
Yep.
You got to have somebody to love you too. But I think it's important that you got to have somebody to love. You got to have something to do that you love,
Yep.
work, volunteer, whatever it may be. You got to be, you got to have that purpose. And then you got to really work hard to maintain good health, not just physical, but good mental health. So those are kind of like what I call my three-legged stool to a happy life. But I think the most important aspect of those three is you got to be extremely passionate about all three of them. Passion is critical as it relates to happiness.
I concur. I wholeheartedly agree. Um, we've talked a little bit about mental health. You just brought it. You just said it again. I was asking you about peace, and I started to ask, and I'll ask it now. How do you either establish or maintain or find peace? Are you still doing yoga? Are you meditating? You're reading? Is it your me time? And I've been vulnerable. I put on certain music, and tears come down, and I can just release pressure when I need to, and sort of know
Yeah.
how to maintain. What do you find are your most powerful
Yeah.
tools, or what gives you the most sense of peace?
Well, I mean, you know, I do a variety of things. Sometimes I do too many things and I don't concentrate enough on one. Exercise
Right.
and activity has always been a big part of my routine as it relates to managing the stress, right, that we've all had in our lives,
Yep.
especially being in the cells. So, for a long time there, I was doing a lot of yoga, which was phenomenal. I have since had a major injury that has prevented me from doing yoga, but I still do my morning. I have a stretch routine, and I have, I would say meditation, but there is some form of breathing and breathing control, which in itself is a form of meditation, I think.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I still work out a lot. I swim. I recently started back playing pickleball, because I can't play tennis anymore. And so, to me, peace is being able to do all these different things during the day, and then sprinkle that in with, working on my investment part, which investing has always been a big passion of mine. And I
Right.
think feeds into the freedom aspect of not working anymore. It has given me more time to pursue my passion with investing, right? So much so that I'm actually working on a project that will help me look. I'm looking to still helping other people to begin on their investment journey. So it's something I'm kind of working on the side, just to kind of help. I just want to help people, basically.
That's great. No, it's exciting. What areas, and you're not getting, I don't want you to give away any names or anything, whatever, but what areas are you like educating yourself on and finding, the most interest? Is it AI companies, like everybody's sort of buzzed out and blown up, or is there, a certain part of the market that you're finding, hey, this is super interesting, natural foods,
Yeah.
regenerative farming? What kind of stuff are you finding that's exciting?
Well, I mean, right now it wouldn't be surprised if I said AI wasn't the most exciting
Right.
thing.
No.
And the hardest part about AI is to understand what is AI and what is it not. And every company
Yep.
right now is called onto the bandwagon. If I put AI in my annual report, or if I find a way to put AI in my mission statement, my stock price is going to be X multiple of what it is today, right? And a lot of people's version of AI is not necessarily AI, but as it relates to investing, I am doing a lot of research in that area.
Okay.
I'm not an investor directly in Bitcoin. I do
Okay.
believe in Bitcoin, but I am invested in what I would call proxy Bitcoin companies,
Okay.
right? And so forth. Yeah.
Like a micro strategy kind of thing where they're focused on Bitcoin, or what, and
Well,
if I'm
you've
asking
got
too detailed of a question, please
no,
stop me.
no. I don't want to get too in the weeds with your audience here, but I mean,
Yeah.
companies that may provide services for miners. I have a
Okay.
company that I'm invested in that has was a miner themselves and built out data centers to provide the compute power to generate
Okay.
that, and
Yep.
realized when they got it all said and done, they had excess capacity. So now part of their business model is leasing out compute power capacity for miners,
Okay.
right? And it's made a very
Fantastic.
good business model. So I look at those as kind of proxy companies to Bitcoin itself.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We call them. Yeah. Sorry, I was going to try to put it in a corn, but I get it. I see the whole market as a craps table. I'm an Ethereum maxi. You know what I mean? I really do look at it like that, and I look at, not in the weeds, but I look at Ethereum name service or ENS competing with DNS from when those of us that are from the '90s and the computers, and how do you find people easy and not have to use this long wallet address? And so, that our communities, augmented reality companies. I mean, I just see it as all these different components that are sort of, to your point, all in the same ecosystem of Bitcoin or whatever the crypto world. Crypto Twitter is what I'm part of. Anyways, I'm going down the path. I wanted to ask. We talked about three. As it relates, I have just now, and I don't think I'm giving away company secrets here, but I've now experienced AI role playing technology that is taking. I'm not a big fan of it. I'll tell you why, but I'm not trying to poison the well because I want to really get your opinion. But it's taking something that has worked and then trying to mass produce it across an organization, and that it never kind of really works because everybody's different and there is no strategy that's just A to B. And yet there's now AI interactive training where you'll interact with this robot AI bot, and then it will critique you on all the points you missed on the message after the meeting. And it's like, is that real? Like, do we need to regurgitate every
Yeah.
bullet point on everybody and it feels like it's throw up and what is it? Show up and throw up or whatever we used to say, back in the day. Any opinions?
Well, I mean, my first thought about AI, and as I dig deeper, and I use it every day too, just so you know, right?
Which one's your choice? Are you a Chat GPT
Well,
guy?
I use ChatGTP, I use Gronk, but I also started using a new one called Perplexity AI, which is more on the scientific and the calculation side because I use AI now a lot for my investment research, and I have found that I can do a lot more in-depth research faster by using AI than I can on my own, and so
Yep.
I kind of use a combination of three. But I'd say ChatGTP is my primary go-to. But it's
Okay.
interesting how you say having a two-way conversation. It's unbelievable how there are times that I can be researching either a certain investment or a certain strategy, and I find myself actually having a two-way conversation with ChatGTP to the point where I'm like, I swear there's somebody on the other end listening to me and responding because it's just amazing the interaction that you can have, and I'm a firm believer in it. I do think that there are some areas that we're going to have to address as a society going forward.
Yep.
Um, but as it relates to me and what I use it for, it just makes me just a heck of a lot more productive. And so far, it's helped me in a very profitable manner too, man. So,
That's awesome. I ignored it for the longest time. I don't want to say I was being stubborn, but and I don't think it was the Terminator, like, hey, it's going to take in, and I didn't believe it was going to ruin or take our jobs. I do believe the mantra that the people that know how to use it are the ones that will rise to the top and succeed. So I've become more curious. I have Chat GPT, however you say it, on my cell phone provided by Apple. So I use it actually every day. But I also, through in my subscription to Twitter, have Grok, and I use that. I would say probably for my because I pay for it. I kind of go that one first when I want to do, like you're saying. I hear you saying, and I'll put it in my own words, I call it advanced search. Like it's like a smart, it's a smart search. Like it's taking the advantage of all the other people that have searched and added and being able to take that and then make it efficient. And we had a how to use it to do, account reviews and investment, kind of investment checking of our customers, just as a way to be smarter and more efficient and effective. So I see that value. I don't think the world ends and we're on, what do you call it, universal basic income,
Yeah.
next year. But at some point, you know what I mean? I think it feels like there's a shift coming. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you feeling that as well?
Well, I mean, I think there's always paradigm shifts that play in the world, right? And I think that that's just one of the areas. I had a conversation the other day with somebody about, AI and specifically using tools like ChatGTP. And I was kind of talking to them about how I use them in different ways. And
Right.
said, well, that's kind of like almost a form of cheating yourself. And I'm like, well, expand on that. And he's, well, you know, in many cases, you're not learning by the answer you get, you're learning by going through the process to get the answer. And I agree, just like in math, you're doing a long math equation that's, step by step you're learning. But what I have found with using, say, ChatGTP in the area that I do is you have to have enough intelligence to know what questions to ask in order to get the valuable information. So as
Yep.
you're learning more knowledge, you're applying that knowledge by asking the right kind of targeted questions. So I kind of disagreed with them in that respect. My whole thing is, and I think that what we've been trying to accomplish as a society over years is how do we get more done with less? And I
Yep.
think that's certainly one of the ways, if not the main way, that our society will generate more with less through AI. Again, I think at some point in time, society is going to have to draw a line and a distinction of what's good AI and what's bad AI, right? And that's beyond me. That's beyond my abilities. I have to let somebody else, decide that. And but I think it's a train that's already left the tracks. It's full steam ahead, and there's no stopping it, quite frankly.
I feel the same way. Actually, you brought me back to a point that I've tried to make a couple of times with some people in conversations, and it always sort of gets out. And it'd be good to get your perspective. I look at it as the same as early computers and punch cards. Like you had to have like a punch card and know kind of keyed, and you'd put it in, and the computer would give you an output. And the training that I've taken and the way that you're learning is there's saved PDFs of the 15 questions that you use as your prompt to ask the question, or even artists that I know where they've got a staged up queue of their base level prompt or their punch card. And then they kind of manipulate off of that. And it's like, okay, it's going to get really exciting when we get past the, hey, I could just go use my cut and paste out of PDF and actually like what I'm hearing you say, which is get to the point where maybe I push a button or not and just start talking to it like we do with
Yeah,
Alexa or some of these other things and just,
absolutely.
hey, here's what it is. And you're talking to a robot. So I think AI is first and the biggest thing, and my wife's not really excited about it, but I think is going to be in tutoring, like having something that's got the patience and the adaptability to help all children sort of grasp something that they don't get today versus trying to get some human just to interact with them. And I think that's going to be a big area. But um, last topic I'll bring up, and these are all the people that I've had these conversations with. This is meant to be like an ongoing conversation. Like I hope that you have had enough fun so far that you'll come back at a point in the future. So the last thing that I wanted to get your perspective on this time as I was talking about it, and you talked about one of your injuries, and I think we both have injuries from sports, and that's your perspective on sports. I know you've had was a nephew that was playing lacrosse, I think it was, and you're a big football guy, and I know is it Georgia? I'm trying to think of where
No, no,
your allegiance
no, it's
is.
not Georgia. No, I'm from Georgia, but it's not Georgia. No, no.
But what do you what do
Well,
you what do you think? Or what do you think the biggest value is for being in sports?
Well, I mean, I just look at myself and growing up and playing football. I mean, I'm a big football guy, and I know football is kind of losing its popularity, and participation is dropping, and people are now kind of migrating over to lacrosse and things like that. But
Right.
football, well, I'll look at it this way: if I had not played football in high school, uh, I probably wouldn't be sitting where I am right now. And that's a pretty powerful statement, I believe. But and again, this could be a topic of discussion for probably 4 or 5 podcasts, per se. But not only did I have a coach that really was a tremendous mentor and kind of taught me some life lessons early on that
Okay.
still follow me to this day, but it also kind of developed the mental toughness and the fortitude to kind of keep your head down, and no matter how bad things get, you just keep chugging along, and you make it happen, right? So,
Yep.
but so sports has always been and will continue to be a big part of my life. I'm a college football fanatic. Unfortunately, my team last year, somebody sent me a meme not long ago that it snowed more in the southern town last year that my football team is located in than they had winds. It snowed 2.1 inches. So that's not a very good stat to have for your college
No.
football. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll let your
Was it a rebuilding year? I mean, is there with-
I don't.
without
It
getting
wasn't
in deep?
supposed to be. No, it was because they went. They were the only team to go undefeated the year before. Then they only won 2 games. So uh, it was just an anomaly, right? So we're hoping to.
Wow.
And I'm sure your guests, being your subscribers as astute as they are, will probably be able to figure out who that is without me mentioning it. But
Yeah.
no, I think we got 9 or 8 Saturdays remaining until kickoff, and new season, spring, eternal hope, right?
I hear you. And I would say what I heard from you, fortitude, definitely agree with that. I had a conversation with Corey Hunter, and he talked about being the old guy in the clubhouse, and the young people were not, sitting in the losses. They were getting on their devices. So we implemented a, no device for 15 minutes after every loss, so we could sit and sort of get, you know, something from learn a lesson. Do you, other than fortitude, I would say one of the biggest things that I took from sports and why I'm a big fan and loved having my kids, and that is perspectives, being around people and having to, adapt, knowing not everybody, is going to be on the same side, and being able to, like, I don't want to say negotiate, but negotiate, like being able
Yeah.
to have people skills, right? And I think people skills is what made both of us successful at sales, being able to have a conversation with somebody, be able to, have dialogue, be able to get information from one to the other. So I think sports, and we'll talk, as you said, we'll talk a lot more about it, but I think people skills is something that I'm seeing a greater need for with all of the isolation that we've had over the last 5 years.
Yeah. I'll leave you with this. I know we're getting close to the end of the time, but I say that for me, and I was just thinking as we're talking about what's probably the number one thing that my high school football coach ingrained in me that I've carried forth through my whole career and to this point. And I think, and some of your subscribers who may know me from the past will probably chuckle when they hear this because I've said this a lot, but I call it the 5 Ps. And he used to ingrain this in us every day, every day. And his 5 Ps were prior preparation prevents poor performance, right? And it was always about being prepared and prepare yourself every day. And to give you an example of it, my senior year, we were at football camp and we were running this one play and we just messed it up. And he made us run it again. And we kept messing it up, messing it up. And this is no lie. We ran that play, I think it was 38 times in a row, to the point where we were like, Coach, the defense knows what they're all lining up in the hole because they know where it's coming, right? And we
Right.
ran that thing until we couldn't breathe. But can you believe this? That following season, the number one most productive play that we as a team offensively did was that play. Now,
And it was because you did it so many times that it just became
we executed it
automatic.
flawlessly. Absolutely, it got to the point where life becomes instinctive versus reactive, right? And when
Yep.
we all know when you're instinctive and you're being proactive, it's much better than sitting back on your heels being reactive to it, right? So I just thought,
Yep.
that's just one lesson that hopefully maybe some of your subscribers can understand is that to me, preparing yourself, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a major event coming up, be prepared,
I agree. I agree. Be prepared and be curious. Always be curious.
That's it.
Joe,
Yep.
I really appreciate you doing this. As I said, I hope you've enjoyed it enough. You'll come back. Um, I think I'm feeling a pull just because we're close friends. I'm feeling a pull to stand up and be more of an elder, try and share wisdom. That's what the reason behind this podcast is, we both have sore ankles, busted up kneecaps, shoulders, back, and we'd love to help people to, maybe learn a couple lessons from them. So I really appreciate your time.
Hey, man, it's good seeing you as always, and look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.
Okay, man, take care. All right, bye.